I'll never forget the moment my entire world collapsed. It was a Tuesday morning, unremarkable in every way, except for the fact that it would become the day I discovered my parents had stolen my entire life savings. I was sitting in my car outside the real estate agent's office, about to make the biggest purchase of my life. After 7 years of grinding, saving every penny, working 2 jobs, and sacrificing countless nights out with friends, I was finally ready to buy my first home. My fiancée Sarah was beside me, practically bouncing with excitement. We'd found the perfect house, a 3-bedroom colonial with a backyard for the kids we planned to have. The down payment was $60,000, and I had $250,000 sitting safely in my savings account. Or so I thought, ready to change our lives? Sarah squeezed my hand, her eyes sparkling. I pulled out my phone to check the balance one last time before we went inside. Just a routine check, the kind you do before making a major transaction. My banking app loaded and I tapped on my savings account. The number that appeared on the screen made no sense. Balance $247.83. I stared at it, my brain refusing to process what I was seeing. This had to be a glitch, some kind of technical error. I refreshed the app. Then again, and again, $247.83. Babe, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. Sarah's voice seemed to come from miles away. My hands started shaking. I could barely hold the phone. There's something wrong with my account. I called the bank immediately, my voice cracking as I explained the situation to the representative. She put me on hold the longest 3 minutes of my life while she checked my account activity. Mr. Richardson, I'm showing multiple withdrawals from your savings account over the past 4 months. Large transfers ranging from $15,000 to $45,000 each. That's impossible. I didn't authorize any of those. This is fraud. Someone hacked my account. Sir, these transfers were made using your online banking credentials, and they were all transferred to an account listed as a beneficiary on your profile. The account belonging to... Let me see. David and Patricia Richardson? My parents' the phone slipped from my hand. Sarah caught it, her face a mask of confusion and growing concern. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. My own parents had stolen $250,000 from me. We need to go, I managed to say, starting the car with trembling hands. We need to go right now. Go where? What's happening? Talk to me? My parents. They took it. They took everything. The 30-minute drive to my parents' house passed in a blur. Sarah tried to talk to me, to understand, but I was beyond words. My mind kept replaying every sacrifice I'd made to build that savings. The years I'd lived in a tiny studio apartment while my friends bought nice places. The countless overtime shifts. The side hustles, freelance graphic design work until 2 a.m., weekend gigs, selling items I loved. Every birthday, every Christmas, every vacation I'd skipped to save money, all gone. When we pulled into their driveway, the first thing I noticed was the brand new BMW 7 Series sitting there, gleaming in the afternoon sun. My dad's old Honda was nowhere to be seen. Since when do they have a BMW? Sarah whispered, since they stole my money, apparently. I pounded on the front door, not caring about the neighbors or propriety. My mother opened it, surprised to see me. Honey, what a nice surprise. We weren't expecting, where's Dad? I pushed past her into the house. That's when I saw it. Everything was different. New furniture, expensive leather sofas, and a massive entertainment center. The kitchen had been completely renovated with marble countertops and high-end stainless steel appliances. New hardwood floors. A 75-inch TV mounted on the wall. Michael, what's gone into you? You can't just barge in here like, where's Dad? I shouted, and my mother actually stepped back. Frightened by the rage in my voice, my father emerged from the kitchen, holding a beer. An imported craft beer, I noticed. Not the cheap stuff he usually drank. What's all the commotion about? I pulled up my phone's banking app and shoved it in his face. This This is what the commotion is about. Where is my money? My parents exchanged a glance. A guilty glance. And in that moment, whatever tiny hope I'd been clinging to, that this was all some terrible misunderstanding, evaporated completely. Now, son, let's just calm down and talk about this rationally. My father began. Talk about IT rationally? You stole $250,000 from me. That was my entire life savings. That was my house, my future. My voice broke. I was shaking with fury and heartbreak. We didn't steal anything, my mother said defensively. We borrowed it. There's a difference. Borrowed? Borrowed? You took every penny I had without asking me. That's called THEFT. Don't you dare use that language with your mother, my father said, his voice hardening. You need to watch your tone. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They'd robbed me blind and he was telling Amy to watch my tone? How could you do this? How could you take my money? My mother crossed her arms. Michael, your father and I raised you for 18 years. Do you have any idea how much that cost? The food, the clothes, the school supplies, the sports equipment. We sacrificed everything for you. That was your choice. You chose to have a child. I didn't ask to be born. And this is the gratitude we get. She shook her head. We needed help, Michael. We have debts. Credit cards, the mortgage, car payments. We were drowning. You had all that money just sitting there because I was saving IT. For my house, Sarah and I were supposed to make an offer today. You're young, my father said dismissively. You'll save up again. You've got your whole life ahead of you. But your mother and I were getting older. We needed that money now. I stared at them, these people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, and saw strangers. Selfish, entitled strangers. So you bought a BMW? You renovated the entire house. You bought all new furniture? That's what you needed the money for? We deserve to enjoy our lives a little bit, my mother said. We've been struggling for so long. Is it so wrong that we wanted something nice? With my money? Yes. Yes, it's wrong. It's illegal. Do you understand that? You committed a crime. Oh, don't be so dramatic. My father waved his hand. It's not a crime when it's family. Family helps family. That's how it works. Family SKS for help. They don't just take without permission. You would have said no, my mother said simply. Yes. I would have said no. Because it's my money. Sarah, who'd been silent until now, finally spoke up. Mr. and Mrs. Richardson, you need to return the money. Michael and I have plans. We were supposed to close on a house next month. My mother looked at Sarah like she was an intruder. This is a family matter. It doesn't concern you. I'm his fiancée. It absolutely concerns me. That was our future you stole. We'll pay him back, my father said, though his tone suggested he had no such intention. We just need some time. How much time? And how? You've already spent it all. I gestured wildly at the renovations around us. We'll figure something out. Maybe $500 a month? I did the math in my head. At $500 a month, it would take them over 40 years to pay me back. I'd be nearly 70 years old. That's not acceptable. I need my money back now. Sell the car. Undo the renovations. Return the furniture. Absolutely not, my mother said firmly. We're not selling anything. Those things are ours now. Bought with money you stole from me. We didn't steal anything. You're being completely unreasonable. After everything we've done for you, this is how you treat us? The gaslighting was unbelievable. They'd robbed me and somehow I was the bad guy? How did you even get access to my account? I demanded. My father shrugged. You added us as beneficiaries years ago, remember? When you were in college in case anything happened to you? And you never changed it. The online banking credentials were easy enough to figure out your password was the dog's name and your birth year. Not exactly Fort Knox. So you hacked into my account, Transferred out every penny I'd saved over 7 years, and you think that's okay because I'm your son? You're making this into something it's not, my mother said. Family. This is what families do. They share. They help each other in times of need. You were in need. You were greedy. Get out, my father said suddenly. Get out of our house. If you're going to be disrespectful, you can leave right now. I laughed a harsh, bitter sound. Your house. That's rich. This is my house now. I paid for these renovations. I paid for that furniture. I paid for your car. Out. My father roared. Sarah grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the door. As we left, I heard my mother call out, "When you calm down and think about this rationally, you'll understand we did what we had to do. You'll forgive us because that's what children do." I slammed the door behind us so hard the windows rattled. The next few days were a nightmare. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I worked so hard for so long, and it was all gone. Just gone. Sarah tried to comfort me, but there was nothing she could say. Our dreams had been shattered by the two people who were supposed to protect me most in this world. I'd started saving when I got my first real job out of college. I'd been an assistant graphic designer at a small marketing firm, making $42,000 a year. While my college friends were renting nice apartments and going out every weekend, I'd lived in a 400-square-foot studio with a broken heater and a shower that barely worked. I'd furnished it with items from thrift stores and Facebook Marketplace. I'd eaten ramen and rice and beans to save money. Every bonus, every tax refund, every birthday check from relatives went straight into savings. When I got promoted and started making more money, I didn't upgrade my lifestyle. I kept living like I was broke. I'd taken on freelance work, designing logos and websites for small businesses, sometimes working until 3 a.m. and getting up at 7 for my regular job. 7 years. 7 years of sacrifice. And my parents had blown through it in 4 months like it was nothing. But the financial loss, as devastating as it was, wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was the betrayal. The realization that my own parents had no problem stealing from me, that they felt entitled to my hard-earned money, that they could do this and feel no remorse whatsoever. They'd looked me in the eye and justified it, defended it, acted like I was the unreasonable one. Sarah was furious in a way I'd never seen her before. "We're going to the police," she said on the third day after the confrontation. "This is theft. They need to face consequences. They're my parents," I said weakly. "They're thieves who happen to share your DNA. This isn't about blood, Michael. They committed a serious crime against you. If a stranger had done this, you'd report it in a heartbeat. Why should they get a pass just because they're family?" She was right, but the thought of turning my parents over to the police made me physically ill. How did it come to this? The situation got worse when my extended family found out. My parents, of course, told their version of the story that I was being selfish and ungrateful, that they'd only borrowed a little money and I was overreacting, that I was threatening my own parents over a family disagreement. My phone exploded with calls and texts about my uncle. "Your parents raised you, and you can't help them out when they need it?" Shameful. My grandmother. Family takes care of each other. You should be ashamed of how you're treating your mother. My cousin. Dude, seriously? They're your parents. Just let it go. Even my older brother called. Mom and Dad explained what happened. Look, I get that you're upset, but they did raise us. Maybe you could have been more generous? More generous? Jake, they took $250,000 without asking. They stole my entire life savings. Okay, stole is a strong word. They're family. It's different. How is it different? Because they're not going to run off with the money. They'll pay you back eventually. You're being dramatic. I hung up on him. Nobody, not one single family member, took my side. According to all of them, I was the problem. I was selfish. I was making a big deal out of nothing. I should just forgive and forget because That's what family does. The irony was suffocating. My parents could steal from me, but I was expected to just accept it because of family loyalty. Where was their family loyalty when they were draining my bank account? Sarah stood by me, though, and so did my closest friends. My best friend Marcus was blunt. Bro, your parents are narcissists. This is financial abuse. You need to protect yourself. 1 week after the confrontation, we met with a lawyer. Her name was Jennifer Torres, and she specialized in financial crimes and family law. The good news, she said after reviewing my documentation, is that you have a clear case. Unauthorized access to bank accounts, unauthorized transfers, there's a digital paper trail. This is textbook theft. And the bad news? The bad news is that prosecuting family members is always complicated. Emotionally, obviously, but also legally. They'll argue they had permission, that there was an understanding that you gifted them the money. And juries tend to be sympathetic to parents, especially if they're older and seem sympathetic. So what are my options? You can try to negotiate repayment, though based on what you've told me, that seems unlikely to succeed. You can sue them in civil court for the money, but even if you win, collecting on a judgment can be nearly impossible if they don't have assets or income. Or you can file a police report and pursue criminal charges. If I file criminal charges, what happens? They could face charges for grand theft, fraud, identity theft, depending on how the DI wants to proceed. That's a felony. They could face prison time, though for first-time offenders in a family situation, they'd more likely get probation and restitution orders. The court would order them to pay you back with a structured payment plan. If they violate it, they go to jail. It gives you leverage. Sarah leaned forward. What would you do if you were in our situation? Jennifer didn't hesitate. I'd file a police report. Not because I'm vindictive, but because it's the only way to create real consequences and have any hope of getting the money back. Without the threat of criminal prosecution, people like your parents have no incentive to make this right. I've seen cases like this before. If you don't hold them accountable, they'll never take responsibility. I thought about it for 3 days. 3 agonizing days of weighing my love for my parents against the need for justice. 3 days of my family calling me selfish. 3 days of lying awake at night, running through scenarios in my head. Finally, I made the decision. Sarah drove me to the police station. My hands were shaking as we walked through the doors. This was it. The point of no return. Once I filed this report, there was no going back. I would forever be the son who called the cops on his parents. The intake officer directed me to sit with Detective Maria Sanchez, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Tell me what happened, she said. Pen poised over her notepad. I told her everything. The discovery, the confrontation, the new car and renovations, my parents' complete lack of remorse. As I spoke, I felt like a traitor, but I kept going. Because this wasn't about revenge. This was about right and wrong. Detective Sanchez asked detailed questions about account access, passwords, and the timeline of withdrawals. I provided her with printed bank statements, screenshots, and a written timeline I prepared. This is clearly unauthorized access and theft, she said after reviewing everything. The fact that you're related doesn't change that. The amount involved makes this grand theft, which is a serious felony. What happens now? I'll open an investigation. We'll interview your parents, review the evidence, and if everything checks out, which it appears it will, we'll submit the case to the district attorney. The DA will decide whether to file charges. How long does that take? Could be a few weeks, could be a couple months. Financial crimes investigations take time. As we left the police station, I felt empty, not relieved, not vindicated, just hollow. I'd just set in motion a process that could result in my parents going to jail. You did the right thing, Sarah said, taking my hand. Then why do I feel like the world's worst son? Because you have a conscience, which is more than your parents can say. 3 days later, Detective Sanchez called my parents to request an interview. They were shocked and furious. My father called me immediately, absolutely livid. You called the police on us? On your own parents? You stole $250,000 from me, Dad. What did you think would happen? I thought my son would act like an adult instead of a spoiled brat. Do you have any idea what you've done? We have to go talk to a detective because you couldn't handle this like a man. I am handling it. You refuse to make this right, so I'm making it right. You're destroying this family. Your mother is in tears. Her blood pressure is through the roof. If something happens to her, that's on you. The guilt trip was impressive, I had to admit. But I've been expecting it. If Mom is stressed, it's because you both stole from me and now have to face consequences. That's not on me. That's on you. Family doesn't do this to each other. You don't turn your parents over to the police like common criminals. You're right. Family doesn't do this to each other. You shouldn't have stolen from me. I hung up before he could respond. My family's reaction was swift and brutal. Within hours, I was persona non grata. My grandmother called to tell me I was no longer welcome at family gatherings. My uncle left a voicemail calling me every name in the book. My brother texted, "You're dead to me." The family group chat, which had always been active with photos, jokes, and plans, erupted in a firestorm of messages about what a terrible person I was. How I'd betrayed the family. How I was choosing money over my parents. How I'd regret this for the rest of my life. I left the group chat. Then I blocked most of their numbers. If they couldn't understand why I had to do this, then we had nothing to say to each other. Sarah's family, on the other hand, was supportive. Her father, a retired business owner, was appalled by what my parents had done. If one of my kids did that to the other, he said, I'd support the victim, not the thief. Your family has their priorities all wrong. The investigation moved forward. Detective Sanchez interviewed my parents, and according to her, they'd maintained that they had permission to use the money, that I'd always been generous with them, that this was all a misunderstanding blown out of proportion by my controlling fiancée. They tried to paint Sarah as the villain, which was almost funny. Sarah, who'd done nothing but support me through this nightmare, but their story didn't hold up. The detective reviewed the bank records, confirmed that the amounts they'd taken far exceeded any previous help I'd given them, and documented that they'd made deliberate efforts to transfer out the maximum amounts allowed per day to avoid triggering fraud alerts. This wasn't a misunderstanding, Detective Sanchez told me during an update call. This was calculated and deliberate. They knew exactly what they were doing. The case was submitted to the district attorney's office. The DA reviewed the evidence and decided to file charges, 2 counts of grand theft, 1 for each parent, 1 count of identity theft, and 1 count of fraud. When my parents received a notification that they were being charged, reality finally set in. This wasn't going away. This was real. My mother called, sobbing. Michael, please don't do this to us. We'll lose everything. We could go to prison. Is that what you want? To see your parents behind bars? For the first time in this entire ordeal, I heard actual fear in her voice. Not anger. Not indignation. Fear. Mom, I need my money back. We don't have it. It's gone. We spent it. Then you need to sell the car, undo the renovations, whatever it takes. We can't. The car is financed. We'd be underwater on it. The renovations are done. We can't get that money back. Michael, please. You have to drop the charges. I didn't file charges. The deeds did. This is out of my hands now? That's not true. You can tell them you don't want to prosecute. Why would I do that? You stole from me and you've shown zero remorse until you realized you might actually face consequences. We're sorry. Okay, we're sorry. We made a mistake. You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry you got caught. She hung up crying. Part of me, a small, wounded part, wanted to cave. Wanted to call the DA and ask them to drop it. But the larger part of me, the part that Sarah and my lawyer and my friends kept reinforcing, knew that if I backed down now, My parents would never face consequences. They'd learned that they could get away with anything as long as they cried and played the victim. 4 months after I discovered the theft, the police showed up at my parents' door. It was early in the morning. Around 7 a.m., 2 officers in uniform with an arrest warrant. The charges had been formally filed, and my parents were being taken into custody. I wasn't there to see it. But my parents' neighbor, an older woman named Mrs. Chen, who'd always been kind to me, called to tell me what happened. She sounded shocked. "Michael, I just saw your parents being put in handcuffs and taken away in a police car. What happened? Are they okay?" "It's complicated, Mrs. Chen, but they'll be fine. They're just being processed." The neighborhood gossip mill went into overdrive. Within hours, everyone on their street knew that the Richardsons had been arrested. The shame of it for my image-conscious parents must have been devastating. They were taken to the county jail, booked, fingerprinted, and photographed. My father, who'd always been so proud and authoritative, reduced to a mugshot. My mother, who'd always cared so much about appearances, photographed with a placard under her face. Their arraignment was scheduled for 2 days later. They posted bail $50,000 each, which they somehow managed to scrape together, probably by calling every relative they had and spinning some story about how I was persecuting them. At the arraignment, they both pled not guilty. Their public defender, they couldn't afford a private attorney, requested a trial date. The judge set it for 3 months out, but behind the scenes, their attorney was already working on a plea deal, because the evidence against them was overwhelming. And any competent lawyer could see that going to trial would be suicide. 2 weeks after the arraignment, their attorney contacted my lawyer with a proposal. My parents would plead no contest to the charges in exchange for a recommendation of probation instead of prison time. Community service and full restitution. Jennifer called me to discuss it. "They're offering full restitution," she explained. "The DA is willing to recommend 5 years probation, 500 hours of community service, and a structured repayment plan of $2,500 per month until the $250. Zero is repaid in full." I did the math. At $2,500 a month, it would take them over 8 years to repay me. 8 years? What if they don't pay? Then they violate probation and go to prison. The court will place a lien on their house and any assets. If they sell the car or the house, those proceeds go to you first. Essentially, the court is forcing them to make you whole one way or another. Will I actually get my money back? Probably not all of it, not quickly. But you'll get more than if you just sued them civilly. And they'll have criminal records. They'll be convicted felons. The thought of my parents being felons was surreal. Growing up, they'd always presented themselves as upstanding citizens, pillars of the community. And now they'd have criminal records. What do you recommend? Take the deal. It's the best outcome you're going to get. You'll get at least some of your money back. They'll face real consequences, and you can start moving forward with your life. I agreed to the plea deal. The sentencing hearing was 3 weeks later. Sarah and I sat in the courtroom, in the gallery, watching as my parents stood before the judge. They looked smaller somehow, diminished. My father's shoulders were hunched. My mother wouldn't look at me. The judge reviewed the case, the plea agreement, and the evidence. Then he asked if I wanted to make a victim impact statement. I did. I stood up, my legs shaky, and walked to the podium. My parents still wouldn't look at me. "Your Honor," I began, my voice surprisingly steady. "The defendants are my parents. They raised me, fed me, clothed me, and I love them. I trusted them completely. That's why, when I was in college, I added them as beneficiaries on my bank accounts. In case something happened to me, they could access my funds for emergencies. I never imagined they would abuse that trust. Over 7 years, I saved $250,000. I worked 2 jobs. I lived in terrible apartments. I sacrificed vacations, nice clothes, going out with friends. Every penny I could save, I saved. That money represented my future, my house, my wedding, my children's education. In 4 months, my parents took it all. Without asking. Without permission. They didn't need the money for medical emergencies, or to keep a roof over their heads. They used it to buy luxury items, a new car, renovated their house, new furniture. They spent my future on things they wanted but didn't need. When I discovered what they'd done, they showed no remorse. They felt entitled to my money because they'd raised me. They said family helps family, but they didn't ask for help they stole. And when I confronted them, instead of apologizing, they defended their actions and tried to make me feel guilty for being upset. The financial loss is devastating. My fiancé and I can't buy a house now. We've had to postpone our wedding. My dreams have been put on hold indefinitely. But worse than the financial loss is the emotional betrayal. I no longer have parents. I have people who share my DNA, but who I can never trust again. I hope the court understands the severity of what they did. This wasn't a one-time lapse in judgment. This was calculated, repeated theft over months. They deserve to face consequences just like anyone else who commits this crime. I sat back down. Sarah squeezed my hand. I glanced at my parents. My mother was crying. My father's jaw was clenched, his face red. The judge spoke. Mr. and Mrs. Richardson, I've reviewed this case thoroughly. What you did to your son is reprehensible. You violated his trust in the worst possible way. The fact that you're related makes it worse, not better. Family should be the people we can trust most. And you betrayed that completely. However, in light of your guilty plea, lack of prior criminal history, and the recommendation of the district attorney, I'm going to sentence you to 5 years probation. You will each perform 500 hours of community service, and you will pay full restitution of $250,000 at a rate of $2,500 per month, beginning immediately. Let me be clear, if you miss even one payment, you will be brought back before this court, and I will revoke your probation and send you to prison. I will place a lien on your home and any assets. If you sell any property, those proceeds go to your son first. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, they both mumbled. I hope you understand what you've done to your son and your family. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down. It was over. That was 18 months ago. My parents have made their monthly payments, though I know it's been a struggle for them. They had to sell the BMW and go back to driving an old used car. They've both picked up extra work. They're living leaner than they have in years. And I imagine they resent me for it every single day. We haven't spoken since the sentencing. They've reached out a few times. My mother sent a card on my birthday. My father called and left a voicemail around Christmas, but I haven't responded. I'm not ready. I may never be ready. Most of my extended family still doesn't speak to me. My grandmother passed away last year, and I wasn't invited to the funeral. That hurt more than I expected. But Sarah's family has embraced me completely. And I've found a new family among my close friends. Sarah and I got married 6 months ago, a small ceremony. Nothing like the big wedding we planned, but it was perfect. We're renting an apartment and saving up again for a house. At the current rate of repayment from my parents, and with the money I'm saving now, we should be able to buy something in another 2 to 3 years. I've been in therapy, working through the betrayal and the family trauma. It's helped. My therapist told me something that stuck with me. You can't control what other people do, even people you love. You can only control how you respond. And you responded by protecting yourself and demanding accountability. That's not wrong. That's healthy. The hardest part isn't the money. Money can be earned again. The hardest part is grieving the parents I thought I had. Coming to terms with the fact that they're not who I believe them to be. That their love, if it exists at all, is conditional and selfish. But I've also learned that family isn't just about blood. Family is about the people who show up for you, who support you, who have your back even when it's hard. And by that definition, I have a great family, just not the one I was born into. If you're reading this and you're going through something similar, maybe not to this extreme, but financial abuse or manipulation from family members, I want you to know a few things. First, you're not crazy. If your gut tells you something is wrong, it probably is. Trust your instincts. Second, You're not obligated to sacrifice yourself just because someone is family. Blood relation doesn't give anyone the right to steal from you, abuse you, or take advantage of you. Third, setting boundaries doesn't make you selfish. Protecting yourself doesn't make you a bad person. You have the right to demand respect and accountability, even from family. Fourth, take action. Document everything. Secure your accounts. Talk to a lawyer. File a police report if necessary. I know it's scary and it feels like a betrayal, but sometimes the only way to stop the abuse is to create consequences. Fifth, expect backlash. When you set boundaries with toxic people, they'll try to make you the villain. They'll cry. They'll guilt trip you. They'll turn others against you. Stand firm. The people who matter will understand. And finally, know that you can rebuild. Yes, my parents destroyed my savings. Yes, they shattered my trust. Yes, they blew up my family. But I'm still here. I'm married to an incredible woman. I have friends who love me. I'm building a new life, one that's healthier and more honest than what I had before. The police showing up at my parents' door didn't give me satisfaction. It didn't make me feel vindicated or happy. But it did give me something important. It gave me justice. It showed me that actions have consequences, that I have value, and that I deserve to be treated with respect. I don't regret calling the police. I don't regret the prosecution. I don't regret demanding accountability. Because the alternative was teaching my parents and myself that they could get away with anything. That I didn't matter enough to protect myself. That family loyalty meant accepting abuse, and I'm worth more than that. We all are.